Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me fine. So, today I thought I'll share a little bit about of the story of my journey with programming. So, a lot of you have been watching my channel. I mean, for me, it's really appreciate. I appreciate how many people, but maybe for others, it might be a little less. But for me, I really appreciate each and every one of you those who watch my channel, watch every single view that I get in my video. So I just thought I'll share some story about my background in programming. So how it happened. So it started in class 5. In class 5 we were introduced to programming. It was basically simple addition, subtraction and multiplication using Java. So when it was introduced to us, okay, before that we had some experience with logo. Yeah, but in class 5 we were introduced with Java. So when they started teaching us that, my first question was, well, if we had to add two numbers, why don't we just add it? Why do we need to write 10 lines of code? Because I had absolutely no idea what programming is, what the application is, what all that was. So that was my first thought. And quite frustrating, I must tell you. And I didn't understand the real implementation of programming till a long time, until maybe say 7 or 8. Okay, so it's basically because of the like education system is which is very bookish. They could have easily told us to start with, but they didn't. They were just like, you have to learn it, you have to mug it up, you have to write it in the exam. That's all you have to do. You don't need to worry about anything else. I was confused. How does it run, or why do we need to like write it in English, and why does the computer like does it read it? I had obviously no idea about compilers and all. So it was quite confusing because we were not given the basics and fundamentals. Then came like class 9. I really struggled with it. I barely managed to pass because I had very bad, even now I have very bad memorization, like memory. So other students would like mug it up and write it in the exam, or maybe they understood it something one or the other, but they could like get very well at it, but I was not good at it. So till class 9 it went on. Then after that came class 10. Now if you don't know, class 10 in India is like a very important year, because in this year you have to give a all India exam where you will be evaluated by teachers from it can be randomly from any other school in the country. So it is a very like very important exam, very legit exam, hopefully. So that's why I was like, I need to do something about it. But yeah, to be completely honest, there was a different kind of marking method for computers. So there was a practical which had 100-mark exam, and then there was this written exam, and the final mark would be the average of 2. Now the practical was basically making presentation. We did not have to do programming and demonstrate anything. It was basically presentation, do some presentation from somewhere, and they would check it. Okay, I did some animation and all. Basically everyone got at least 80. So if you get 80, your average is 40, even if you score 0 in the written exam. And there was no like mandatory threshold for the written exam as well. You could actually score 0 and still pass, because the pass mark was 35. So 40 would be good passing mark. But even then, I was not too sure about all these things. I was not too confident of like completely letting go my written exam. So I thought something needs to be done. I started trying to understand what the hell is going on. We didn't have internet. I didn't have internet, like maybe people did, but I didn't have internet. So there was no YouTube, there was no explanation, there was no documentation as well. So what do we do? I got hold of a book from a senior, a year senior. Now that book completely changed the game. It was much more well explained. Yeah, yeah, just yeah. One more thing. So we didn't have a book for programming. Okay, Java, whatever was being taught to us was completely oral or basically from whiteboard to our text. They used some kind of book, but they didn't share us or like they didn't push us to buy it. So we were all ignorant about the book. So we basically had no book for programming, and I think it's just mere fact that I got a book for programming from my senior. It completely changed the game. I started to understand what is going on. It had explanation of basically why programming is used, what is going on with the compilation, that is it is going into the computer's brain, how it is going into the computer's brain from English. And basically I got the concept of this repetitive thing that can be replaced with programming. That is basically the automation part, and that was the missing piece of the puzzle. And once I got that, the puzzle completed, and i I had the big picture, and like my mind exploded basically. Like it exploded with millions of possibilities what can be done with programming. And that is the day I started to get like intensely, you know addicted, or I started loving programming. Okay, so in like mere I think 15 to 20 days, I had like complete control over the then level of programming, which was not very low, by the way. It had like string manipulation, like we had to add string, replace characters, and all that. It was quite complex, but basically we were given it, like handed out those things, so we had to just mug up. So the complexity didn't really matter, but if you were to understand them and implement it yourself, it was quite complex. So I had complete control over. Yeah, so I had complete hold of programming. Then came college, but until then I just had like basic logic. I did like basic, coding. Like it wasn't about making software or anything. But then came college, and I started like experimenting with different kind of frameworks and shit. Before college, let me add one more. So before college, there was like 11, 12, which is basically like high school. I can call them class as well. So this is when I basically started experimenting with everything like softwares and different frameworks. Like I made HTML website, started with HTML websites, then like I used JavaScript to do things, like basically everything, right? I spent my whole vacation, summer vacation, winter vacation on trying to get. I remember I was trying to get a PHP code to be dynamic. Like I could save a new product, and I basically made a e-commerce site without any knowledge of any e-commerce or any kind of programming. So I wanted to save it. I had no idea about databases, so I wondered how do I save it. So I devised a method to like replace the part of the code, okay, every time new product is created, and it worked. So every time a new product is created, I used to add change the text to add things to the array. And then I realized there are if condition which the product is dependent on. So I tried to array was okay. I was able to properly add arrays and remove arrays, but if condition got complicated. So I could add if condition, but I could not remove it. Okay, when I deleted the product, it didn't get removed. So I was like, this can't happen. It's going to keep adding up. So that was that. Then it never stopped. I learned a lot of things. I learned Java. I learned Android. I learned Flutter now. I'm learning Flutter now. Like basically everything. I didn't like make something great, but basically everything. I like earned $60 with the only, not the only, I guess I made a few apps which were like practice, but then I decided I'm going to make a newspaper app where people could read newspapers. I made that, and that like gave me $60, which are still I guess lying in my AdSense, because you had to have 100 to yeah, you know cash it out. Also, like the AdSense account got like I guess cancelled or something because I didn't update the app with the new policies of Google Play. Yeah, so there's that. And then I gave the account to someone else to l- host his apps, but his apps turned out to be illegal gambling apps, so Play suspended my account. So there's that. Then coming to my job during placement, I studied programming a lot. I used to do like data structure algorithm, even though my branch was not the computer science, it was electronics. I still used to learn in hopes of getting into a good, company. But I did not I got into a company which was not core programming job, so it was like I had to make business workflows. It has JavaScript and Groovy, but like most of the code was already made, and like HTTP request, for example, I didn't need to make the code. I just had a block of HTTP. I could put the block and replace the parameters like the URL and the request body. Yeah, request body, for example, had to have a script, so the block HTTP block, like the request, there has to be a script before the HTTP block which would define the request body. So for those parts I had some script and programming part, but otherwise it was mostly like blocks. So there's that. But I obviously did my side gigs, and I guess I earned 50,000 INR from my side gigs, which is not much, and I don't really get them a lot, and like it is difficult for me to get the foreign gigs which like pays the most. So there's that, because I like worked a lot. I worked a lot of gigs. I worked on like AR things, inbuilt Android AR, but I didn't get paid a lot because it was mostly through somebody, or it's mostly Indian clients. So yeah, they couldn't pay much. So that was the job, and now like it is what it is. I'm working on the job and trying to learn, and that's how it's going. So yeah, there's that. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to end this now. Goodbye, take care.